Welcome to Tilly's Trans Tuesdays. This week we're talking about happy aspects of being trans that I was entirely unprepared for, little delightful side effects that I never could have expected. The unexpected bonuses of transition. Hi, I'm Tilly Bridges, your host, and I'm joined by my writing partner, my best friend, my wife, our token cis representation, the lady who's just as much of a bonus to my life as I expected her to be, Susan Bridges.
You had high expectations.
Well, you think highly of yourself, I see, as you should.
No.
As you should.
Wow.
Our returning guest is Rachel Kendra, a photographer, filmmaker, and writer based in Los Angeles who has worked in the film and television industry for over 15 years. As a photographer, she has shot everything from headshots to events to real estate, but her favorite is capturing behind-the-scenes photos on film sets. Past film projects have included writing and producing duties on short films and web series. She is also a video essayist and is currently working on a documentary about the making of a feature film by another trans filmmaker. Like many recent late bloomers, she began her transition during the COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome back, Rachel.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Okay, so what is it that drew you to filmmaking, writing, and photography? Have you always been super creative?
Yeah, I would say so. I got interested in the making of movies when I was probably like 7 or 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My dad introduced me to a lot of films, and he was a big fan of film scores. And he explained to me one day that, all these film scores that he would listen to outside of the movies were just they were just one component of a movie, and that lots of people had to do lots of different jobs in order to make a movie happen. And I was like, wait, you mean movies don't just happen? Like, people have to make them?
Yeah, I remember the first time I was like, wait, somebody wrote this TV show. That's amazing. How do you do that?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was like, okay, well, if somebody has to write the music, then what do all the other people do? So I kind of took myself to like the kid version of film school.
I love that.
And I just learned as much as I could about stuff. And this is in the days before even like DVD special features. So I had to look for, my dad collected laser discs, and some laser discs had special features on them, so I could watch those. I rented documentaries from, like, if there was occasionally like a documentary about the making of a movie would get released by itself on VHS, so I could rent that or check it out from the library. There were books and stuff, and Star Wars was an especially big one because the making of those films is probably the most well documented, filmmaking process in history. So there was so much, like there were museum exhibits for that I went to, and I found it all so fascinating. And I learned all of these things, all these different professions one by one. And by the time I was like 14, I was like, well, this is what I want to do with my life. This is incredible. And I wrote, when I was 14, I wrote my first feature-length screenplay. And,
wow.
I made short films in high school, and I eventually went to film school. And the plan was always to move out to Los Angeles. Eventually I did. And I'm really glad that I did, because I love it here.
Me too.
I'm still obsessed with the movies.
Yes, same. Do you feel that transition changed your creativity at all? Like the way you think about creating art, making art, did it change it?
I think probably yes, because I feel like I have more to say now.
Sure.
Beyond just wanting to tell a good story. I mean, that's still a part of it, obviously, but I feel like there is more. I feel like I have a richer mental and emotional life and it makes it more important that the things that I make have something to say.
Yeah.
So that's become a priority, and it's really shifted the sorts of stories that I want to tell, because there are so many, there are so many treatments and outlines for stuff that I have written over the years, and I look back on a lot of them now and I'm just like, I have absolutely no interest in ever telling that story now, because I'm a completely different person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest change.
Yeah. You have so much more access to your feelings, your thoughts, yourself, that you can put more of yourself into that art. So I think like our writing got a lot better after I transitioned, because my
Mm,
portion of that in the writing that Susan and I do together, I think became a lot better. So when your
sure.
whole outlook on life changes, it's obviously, yeah, going to change, I think, the stuff that you create too.
Hmm.
For you, what has been the most surprising thing about your transition?
Most surprising thing. I mean, I have to start with the cop out answer that I gave last time. Like everything, I didn't know what to expect from my transition, because I was so deeply in the closet that I had
Yeah,
no inkling that I was, despite all the signs, no inkling that I was trans until I was 35 or 36, right before I started transitioning. I just, I didn't know. I spent most of my life hating myself and being miserable and not understanding why, even though,
yeah,
I was trying to be, I had this very particular idea of manhood and masculinity that I was trying to live up to. Fortunately, it wasn't a toxic one, which is, often the
that's
case
good.
for, a lot of trans women who did try and do that for the years prior to transition. There's a sort of like overcompensation with masculinity that a
Yeah,
lot of them try to do, like, you know really big beards and sometimes toxic behavior. For
yeah,
me, it was very important to me to listen to women and be the sort of man that they said they wanted, because it made more sense to me, because I saw the way that so many men are so awful and toxic,
yeah.
and
I tried to do
because
that
of,
too.
yeah, because of the way
Yeah,
that men are often raised. And even me trying to be a better man, I still learned a lot of those toxic lessons, and it's not because somebody like sat me down and taught me them. It's just stuff you pick up
yeah.
from your
Society tells you.
friends, just from
Yeah,
what society tells you. And through all of this, like, I tried very hard to be this particular kind of man, and to my credit, I got very good at it. But even though I got good at it, it still didn't make me happy. I was still miserable, and I didn't know what to do about it, because I
yeah,
couldn't figure things out. And it wasn't until I started going through the process of figuring myself out, which was very painful and arduous, that I started to look back on my memories and look back on my life, and realized that the signs had actually always been there, but
yeah,
because of who I was unable to recognize them for what they were.
yep,
I just, and like, I couldn't see the pattern of them until I looked back and realized that there was a pattern there, and that things that I
yeah,
was thinking and my brain had shut down are not things that cis people think about.
yeah, yeah. You mean every guy doesn't just want to be a lady? Of course you would. Ladies are better. What? I mean,
Right.
every guy thinks this. Every guy.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite one to look back on that was most indicative of all this. I don't know if you remember this Japanese anime called Robotech. It actually
Okay.
has a more complicated history, but the American version of it is called Robotech. And it was actually three different shows that were sort of re-edited and retranslated to be three seasons of a single show. So in the first season of this show, the main character was like tailor made to be a character who appealed to that young boy that I used to be. Was like really into machines and vehicles and airplanes, was in
Uh-huh.
love with the prettiest girl in town, who was who is a singer, even had my dead name, same name.
Wow.
And I did not identify with this character at all. I identified with a character from season 3 who was a very genderqueer, like very femme presenting drag queen lounge singer with blue
Wow.
hair who totally passed as a woman with like the most minimal amount of makeup. That's the character that I identified with. But of course, there were no signs.
No signs at all. No.
Yeah. But so when I was going through this process, my life was just full of things like this that kept cropping up, and I never let myself see the pattern.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to see when you don't have any examples to look at of other people who have done it, you know?
Oh my
So,
God. Yeah, this is one of the things that really pisses me off about all of it. And I feel less bad about myself because I just didn't have, role models
yeah,
and examples, because it was all stuff like, you know, the trans representation that you would see. It was like Ace Ventura, or,
exactly. That was the first time I ever saw what was supposed to be a trans woman on a screen, and it totally messed with my head. It probably kept me from realizing my own truth for years. It was so
completely. Yeah,
bad.
it's very bad. And like, I think when I was younger, the most positive representation of trans people I ever saw was in porn.
Wow. Yeah,
And
that's
like,
sadly true for a lot of people.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Not that
even
there's
that
anything
is,
wrong with sex work, but
no, not at
that
all.
should
That's
not be the only way we can see ourselves is, you know, being fetishized.
We
right,
have a wide
exactly.
variety of media in this world.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So, but instead, growing up in the 90s, we got Ace Ventura, we got Dude,
Yeah.
Where's My Car? We got, like, all these other movies that have trans people in them, Silence of the Lambs, Dress to Kill,
The
stuff
Crying
where
Game.
Oh
The Crying
yeah.
Game,
Yeah.
Sleepaway Camp, all these things that have trans people in them, trans women in particular, who are all psychopaths and killers and
Or
criminals,
jokes.
or
Yep.
jokes,
Or jokes.
or a combination of them.
Or yep.
Devious trickery.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, all of that stuff. And it really messes with you, because I thought trans people were weird and kind
And
of gross for the
right.
longest
Bad and
time.
wrong. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
that's the message the only message.
Exactly.
yeah. And at best, we were a fetish.
Yep.
And that it really prevents you from wanting to be able to see yourself like that. So you just sort of like close it off as an
Yep.
option.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rough. And I do my annual trans rep and media reports on movie and TV,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not great. Every year there's still almost as many jokes about trans people as there are actual trans people you will see on screen, but there are actual trans people you will see on screen, and some of them are done really well. Trans characters handled really well, and even that little bit, if there's like 3 or 4 shows, is so much more than we used to have. And it's not enough, but I'm glad that at least some of it exists for people out there, trying to figure themselves out now, to see that we can just
Yeah.
be normal humans too, because that's what we are. We're just humans.
Yeah. It is at least an improvement. And in some cases, the accessibility of older material has made things easier, because there are older examples of positive portrayals of trans women, but you have to know what they are and you have to know where to
Yeah.
look. And it was harder to do that prior to streaming, and not
Oh, yeah.
necessarily like the major streaming services. I'm talking about people who have like posted stuff on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is findable. You just have to do a little bit of searching for it. But the fact that even in mainstream media, there are at least some examples that we can point to now. I try to be optimistic that this is an improvement,
Yeah.
and not lament quite so much that there are still, like, I saw you posted something recently about this, and how, even on shows that are otherwise very good in a lot of ways, there will still be jokes that,
Yep.
like you mentioned, like the new season of Hacks has
Yeah.
transphobic jokes in it.
I mean, they're not surface transphobic jokes, but when you stop and think, why is this supposed to be funny? It comes back to you are making fun of people who exist this way, which are trans people. So much of it is like that. The implicit biases of society works its way into people's art, because it's what they've been taught just by living in this society that we're in. So that's why I try to always talk about those things, because until people realize, oh, that joke I made is actually making fun of trans people, and I didn't realize it, nothing's going to change. They're still going to keep happening, and it reinforces those implicit biases in people, and it is unfortunate and sad.
Right, and people are getting called out here and there, when, like, because you do still see, like, the T slur gets tossed out every once in a while, and it's just sort of, a throwaway thing because the usually cis male writer doesn't understand the implications of that word. It's just it's kind of just a word to them, and it's not a slur to them.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes,
we need more people like us behind the scenes that are not cis men writers to help fix these things.
We could talk about that for a long time.
Yes,
but we could probably keep going.
We should move on. Okay.
That's a good point.
Okay. If you had any advice for somebody just starting their transition, what would it be?
Be kind to yourself.
Yes.
And be patient with yourself. That's especially hard right at the beginning.
Oh, it's so hard.
Oh my God. And especially if you start later, because you're going to want to beat yourself up about things you can't control.
Yeah.
Because once you start transitioning, all of the things that you hate about yourself, all the things that that make you dysphoric, like, you're not going to be suppressing them anymore. So they are going to be at the forefront of your mind at all times. And it's a lot to carry around all the time.
Yeah.
And you just have to, like, it will get better, and these things will become less painful over time. The rate at which they become less painful is definitely different for everybody.
Yeah.
But part of the process of transitioning is about accepting yourself.
Yep.
And it's a really hard thing to do, especially if you haven't been doing it for a long time.
For your whole life. Yeah. It's hard, and it takes so much time, and it can be really hard to wait, because you're like, I've waited my whole life for this. I'm finally doing it. Why do I still have to keep waiting? And you just have to keep waiting because you don't know when or how. It's really hard. So it's super important to be as kind to yourself as you can and be patient. It will happen. Just give it some time.
Yeah. And at some point, you do reach a point, especially if you're on HRT, where it kind of, like, you will start to see it happen a little bit more frequently.
Yeah.
At least that's been my experience, where every 2 or 3 weeks or so, I looked in the mirror, and first of all, getting over not hating the person in the mirror was a really big help. But then every 2 or 3 weeks, I would look in the mirror and see myself looking slightly different and slightly more like a girl, more like the person that I want to become.
Yeah.
And it's such a joy every time that happens. Like, God, I used to hate, like, I learned to shave by feel in the shower where I didn't have a mirror, so that I didn't have to look at myself while shaving. Now I'm like Narcissus when I'm looking in the mirror. Like, I can't stop. I'm so cute.
Yeah.
I just can't stop.
You are, though. So
Thank you.
To be fair. Yes. No, I'm the same way, though. Even 4 years in, I will see myself in the mirror and I will just, like, break out in the biggest smile. I wave to myself because I'm so happy to see her there. So I totally get it. Yeah. Okay, before we get into this week's topic, remind folks where they can find you online if they'd like to look you up after.
I am taking a bit of a social media break, but my accounts are still, like, open and active. You can find me at Rachel X Kendra. I guess the places where Instagram is probably where I if I spend any time on social media, it's there. I was on Threads for a bit, and I was a long time Twitter user, and I will probably end up going back to these platforms in some capacity, at least when I have stuff to promote. I will certainly
Sure.
retweet when these podcasts go out. Yeah, otherwise, I have a website, rachelkendra.com. Also hasn't been updated in a little while, but I do think about it, and if I start posting stuff, it'll probably be there.
Excellent. So, I suspect there are unexpected bonuses like this for every trans person out there, although what they are undoubtedly varies. For people who transition as adults, realizing and accepting that we're trans requires a lot of introspection and self-examination. I've mentioned many times that trans people probably know ourselves better than anyone else on Earth because we have to in order to overcome the gatekeeping, lies, and gaslighting about our own identities that the cis-binary matrix of society forces on us. It's something that's maybe never fully really finished because life's a journey of discovery. But for those of us who didn't transition until adulthood for a variety of reasons, we've had to do incredible work to get to where we are. And you spend so much time focused on that, on trying to figure things out, on trying to accept the truth of who you are, that you don't always realize every little thing that can come with transitioning. At least I didn't. Guy clothes always made my dysphoria worse, and so I couldn't wait to actually be able to wear women's clothes. But I didn't anticipate how much I'd really like wearing skirts and dresses. I don't even have that many yet, but they make me feel really happy. See episode 15 on heavily gendered clothes and trans people for more on that.
I feel like you have a lot of skirts and dresses. I don't even have that many.
I could always use more.
Are you?
Okay.
Are you for real?
Okay, but listen, somehow this surprised me. You'd think, okay, sure, you wanted to wear those clothes and now you can, so it stands to reason that achieving that goal would bring you joy. But it's more than that. I guess it's like an exterior sign that says, hey, the outside matches the inside. Holy crap, what is this like? When you go your whole life without that, you don't realize what a change that is. And this, my friends, is gender euphoria. See the Trans Tuesday on it and learn how cis people can and do experience it too at tillystranstuesdays.com. Maybe that's something I should have seen coming, but I didn't, probably because I had zero frame of reference for what it was like. And what's wild is that gender euphoria can be one of the best ways of discovering that you're trans or non-binary, and people who don't have gender dysphoria can and do still experience gender euphoria. Okay, so Rachel, I feel like I know the answer to this question because you talked a bit about your clothes before, but I wanted to ask you if the dress go spinny phenomena had caught you too.
That hasn't particularly. I am very open to it, though. I own two skirts. One is very long and doesn't spin very well. One is short and more of a pencil skirt and doesn't spin at all.
No.
So it'll happen eventually. And I think the further I get into my transition and the more comfortable I am with the way that my body looks, I do anticipate it being more and more of a thing, because I do like to sort of, the way that I do my clothing a lot of times is that I do have a lot of, I mean, I think the best example would be wearing a cami underneath a flannel shirt, a sort of mix of like slightly more femme, slightly more butch. And, I guess futch is going to be where I end up most of the time. But I do like being able to go one way or the other, because when I'm going to a fancy party or something, a thing where I dress up, I do go way more femme with it. But my casual looks tend to be a little bit more on the butch side of things, because it's easier and I'm still relatively comfortable with it.
That's all that matters.
Yeah. And those things are going to change out, because I am still wearing a lot of the jeans that I had from before transition, but I do have some women's jeans that I bought since then that I like on me more than the men's jeans.
Yeah.
And as my body continues to change, that only becomes more true.
For me, I was so buried by my own dysphoria, my desire to transition was to lessen it, to ease the stress and pressure and pain and burden and loneliness and isolation that it put on me. It somehow never even occurred to me that I could be happy and excited and feel good about so many things. I was actively trying to fix the bad and hoping that would be good, if that makes sense. Dysphoria got so bad, all I could think about was escaping it rather than focusing on what I might be able to feel and achieve without it. You can learn more about gender dysphoria and my personal struggle with it in episode 59 of this show. But for a lot of trans and non-binary people, euphoria leads the way and they transition to seek out more of it. We all have our own paths, and for me, it felt like too much to even hope I could actually be happy in a dress or a skirt. I thought maybe I just wouldn't be miserable, and that would be great, you know? So my own euphoria, every damn day, just seeing myself in the mirror, from my clothes, from my voice, from my body, totally caught me by surprise. But there are other much smaller things I'd never considered that also blew my mind. I really, really like pink. I mean, I like most pinks, unless they get too salmony, but I love me some neon fuchsia with just the right amount of purple in it. I love it. I love it. I even got a dress as close to that color as I could for our re-wedding when I and my gorgeous wife Susan here renewed our vows and had a wedding with the real me. It's not quite as purpley as I would have preferred, but it was fabulous and so very much me. If you missed episode 72 about our trans re-wedding, please check it out and bask in the joy and love, won't you? Okay, so at first I thought my love of fuchsia was maybe some weird overcorrection on my part. I was denied female-coded things my whole life. It was only natural I'd dive into them as far as I could. And then maybe I'd pull back a bit as I discover what I really like. It's a common thing that happens to a lot of trans folks because, again, it's all a process. But for me, that's not what this is. Because I can remember being a very little kid and loving this color and loving the way it mixed with purple. And I remember telling my mom this during one of those times you ask a kid their favorite color because you don't have a lot to talk about when they're that age, or you have a passive-aggressive Midwestern parent who doesn't want to talk about real things at any point ever. I wouldn't know anything about that. But I was told unequivocally no, that was not my favorite color and could not be because it was for girls and girls only. I was not allowed to like a goddamned color. The gendering of our society is so horribly damaging, especially to kids. And if you don't know just how insidious it is, see episode 50 of this show on gendered childhoods and let it open your eyes to just how compulsory being cisgender and heterosexual is in our society. In any case, little Tilly was told that she could like purple as long as it wasn't too pink. And then little Tilly did some overcorrection of her own and threw herself into purple everything. It even carried over into like candy, where I claimed every grape variety as my favorite. And I mean, that's some delusion because quote unquote grape candy and drinks are anything but. They're so weird. How does anyone like that? It doesn't taste like grapes. What is it? I don't know. And yet even now I still kind of love it, probably because I formed some association with it being safe in my childhood. And that carries over still today. See, when I told you trans people do so much damned introspection, I wasn't kidding. So realizing that now I could like this color was revelatory. I mean, I certainly could have at any time, even when presenting as a man, because nobody can stop you from liking a color, except your parents when you are very small, apparently. But again, our society programs these things into us without us even realizing, and it took me breaking out of those societal norms to declare my true gender before I realized I could even declare my true favorite color, which is pretty messed up. For so much more on the way society worms thoughts into us without our knowledge in much more damaging ways, check out episode 57 of this podcast on implicit queerphobia and episode 18 on internalized transphobia.
Oh my God, I feel this so hard.
Yes,
Yeah.
talk about it.
Oh God, the way that I describe my trauma of keeping myself suppressed is that, I am very fortunate in that the trauma that I suffered was not overt and at the hands of my parents or specific people or anything like that. I mean, they contributed to it in their own ways. Not, like they were supportive in so many ways, but also they were trying to teach me how to exist in the world as a cishet man.
Yeah.
So the lessons that I was learning and the lessons that everyone else was teaching me, whether they realized it or not, I was learning to think of myself in a certain way and not in others. So I learned quietly what was for boys, what was for girls, and only allowing myself what was for boys. So like my favorite colors growing up were, blue and black.
Yeah.
It wasn't until well after college where I started thinking of red as my favorite color because it was like just a little bit too feminine.
Yeah.
And
That's so messed up.
it's so messed up. It's red. It's like it's the
Right.
color of
It's a
blood.
color.
Yeah, it's like it's the
The warrior's color. Ooh.
yeah, it's yeah, the color of rage and passion. Now I don't care about any of that. Now I'm like probably the most basic thing about me is I freaking love rose gold. Love it
It's
so
really
much.
pretty, right?
It's really pretty. Like my
Yeah.
laptop is rose gold. The stand that I put it on is rose gold. Like I absolutely love it. And my favorite color is probably a burgundy kind of color. It was the color I started painting my nails all the time after I got out of the black
Sure.
only nail polish phase. To your point about the lessons that society implicitly teaches us, I learned so many of these lessons that I kept, like, nobody had to do these things where they had told me, like, you can't have that because it's for girls. You can't, like, nobody had to do that to me because I was doing it to myself constantly.
Yeah.
And it's really messed up. And it starts at such a young age because everything is gendered. The toy
Yeah.
store is gendered,
Yep.
clothing stores are gendered, pharmacies are gendered. Like,
Yeah. And
it,
our media is so gendered, especially kids media.
yeah, kids media. Oh my God, kids media is so gendered. The toys that were allowed
Yep.
are so gendered.
The blue aisle and the pink aisle in the toy store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's only gotten worse over time. It's like I am old enough to remember when Lego was not gendered at all because that's the way
Yeah.
it started. It's just blocks and kids
Yeah.
play with blocks. The early advertisements for Lego showed boys and girls playing with the blocks. But then as Lego has moved into more like branded and licensed
Yeah.
sets, there are boy and girl Lego sets,
Yeah.
and mostly it's marketed towards boys. The whole American toy market has been mostly marketed towards boys for the longest time, except the stuff that was for girls. Thank you, Ronald Reagan. All of these, it's all,
We can
add it to a list.
so much. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It really just, all of this stuff came from at so many angles, and it really like made me just, I did the work that society wanted me to do in
Yeah.
suppressing my own true identity to the point where I had all of the mechanisms in place to suppress it before I even knew what I was suppressing.
Yep. Absolutely. Society is very insidious that way.
The Matrix.
Yeah. Yes. The check is in the mail. Okay. You know what else I wasn't allowed to like? Matching. Like in terms of clothes. If I got too matchy, my mom would always make some comment and tell me I couldn't dress like that. I guess matching colors on different pieces of clothing is somehow also gendered. I don't know. Bull Brubble screwed us up so bad, friends. I went into more about that in the episode on heavily gendered clothes that I mentioned before, so check it out if you want to hate Bo too. You should. He was terrible. Anyway, this manifested itself one night when I used a hair tie to put my hair up into a pineapple for bed. If you follow my socials, you've no doubt seen my pineapple selfies. I have a big bag of satin scrunchies in all different colors because I've always loved brightly colored anything. But there's so many varieties, I could stand there for 10 minutes and not know which one to use. Every decision is potentially life-altering, I guess. I don't know. Welcome to my brain. So I generally just grab one without looking. And as soon as I put my hair up, I noticed that the hair tie I picked just happened to exactly match the color of my pajamas. And I squealed with glee. What? Why? I was so baffled. Why did something so meaningless bring me so much joy? Because it's another thing that had been kept from me for my whole life, and now here it is for me, mine, anytime I want. I can match any hair accessory to my clothes anytime I want. Freedom! Imagine your favorite gif of someone cool yelling this, but not the famous one from that movie with the cis straight white man who's a sexist racist. In fact, I also love matching my glasses to my outfit, and sometimes even my lipstick, and people are always complimenting me on it, which frankly is very cool and the correct thing that you should all be doing a lot more of. And sometimes I even get all matchy with fuchsia, and good golly dang, it makes me so happy. You know what else is an unexpected bonus now? I can get quote-unquote girly gifts. Susan got me a little charm necklace with my name on it, which you can see in almost every single selfie I take. It's very cute, and I adore it. A lovely friend, after reading a past Trans Tuesday where I mentioned never getting to be a little girl or a teen girl, sent me a few gifts. My Little Ponies. One of them is on my dresser, and there's a big stuffed rainbow dash that sits right next to the bed and is the first thing I see every morning when I get up, and it makes me smile every day. I don't know if you can anticipate stuff like that, but it changes everything. Little tiny moments over and over throughout your life reminding you how much better things are now. Even just hearing someone call me Tilly sends me soaring into the clouds. Susan and I have had some calls and meetings where people start off by saying, "Hello, ladies," and it makes me want to scream every time in extreme joy, I assure you.
Oh my God, I remember the first time I was out at like a girls'
Yeah.
Valentine, it was like a Galentine's dinner, and the waitress looked at this table and was like, "Hello, ladies," and I was like, "Oh my God,
Right?
that's
It's the
me."
best. It's the
Yeah,
best. Even
it's so
4
great.
years into my transition, I still feel it, and I hope it never stops.
Yeah.
If you've ever done that, by the way, and I continued talking to you like an adult, please realize it took all of my self-control to not scream, "Oh my God, thank you," over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard the joke, how many trans women does it take to screw in a light bulb? Only one, but you don't even need a light bulb because if you just call her pretty, she'll light up the room.
It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even a joke. That's just fact.
It's just true.
Okay, so this is fun. I was even more surprised to discover that my handwriting changed. Not randomly or subconsciously, actually, but because I decided I could change it. As a kid, I loved the way some girls wrote, where the letters were all rounded and flowy and pretty to look at. And so I tried to write like that too, and you know exactly where this is going. Someone, my parents, my teachers, my friends, probably all of the above, said, "No, boys can't write pretty. It's just so tiring." So little me overcorrected there too. Fine, if I can't write pretty, I'm not going to care how I write at all. My printing became rough and scratchy, small and constrained, and I never gave it another thought my entire life until a couple years ago. I keep a physical day planner on my desk to write down all the shit I have to do because for some reason my brain loves analog written lists with dates. But if I try to use a calendar app, it's just another computer program to ignore and doesn't work for me at all. And because the only real writing I do by hand is in my planner and I was paying attention, I can tell you exactly when this happened and what I was writing and thinking about. February 3rd, 2021. I wrote down to email Susan's and my manager about a new series pitch we were working on, and it looked different from everything else up to that point. The letters were more spaced out. They were open, rounded. It's probably no surprise that it happened with a note about something creative that we were doing. My brain was probably more open to experimenting and being creative with my handwriting because it was already in creative mode. On February 4th, 2021, almost everything written down was still in that tightly constrained scratch, except for another note about this series pitch and our manager. By Friday, February 5th, 80% of what I'd written there was in the new open, rounded style. The following week, all of it was. The messy scratch that looked like it's waiting to explode was gone. I could even see how I was experimenting with letters and words day to day, trying to see what I liked. This was a conscious decision I made because I was looking at the horrible, tightly wound, edgy, scratchy, messy print, and it made me feel bad. Maybe because I associate it with the world telling me I was a gender I'm not. Maybe because subconsciously I was remembering wanting to print differently and being told I couldn't. Or maybe because you should read my description of it again. Or hear it in this case. Horrible, tightly wound, edgy, scratchy, messy, waiting to explode. If that's not a metaphor for how it felt living in the wrong body, thinking I was the wrong gender for most of my life, I don't know what is. It's a very visual representation of the dysphoria I was feeling. And again, see the Trans Tuesday on it I mentioned before for more. I was writing like that because that's how I felt. All the time. But I don't feel that way anymore. I finally feel open and relaxed and at peace with myself. And all of this is just to say that looking at every aspect of your own life, no matter what your gender is, can lead you to important revelations. Even if small, they could change your entire life for the better.
That's so cool. I'd never considered that before. I think I'm gonna pay more attention to the way that I write stuff down by hand now. I'd never even thought of that.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, why my entire life did I never think I can change how I write if I don't like it? And it never occurred to me, right? I was
Right.
just like, why would I, though? Because everything feels awful and tiny and scratchy and miserable. So,
But I guess it's like, like we were talking about before with, your voice, the way that your handwriting is a habit that you've
yeah,
just developed. And if you want to change it, you can just change it. You just practice writing differently. So if you just write differently in your planner every day, it's bound to change at some point,
yeah,
right?
that's exactly what happens.
That's
And
so
now, and
cool.
now I love looking at it. It's like that looks so much more like how I feel. And I think it's really good.
Hmm.
Thanks for being here, Rachel.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Folks, look inward, examine yourself and your choices and your desires and the things you like and dislike, and discover why, and do what you need to make yourself happier. I'm worth it, and so are you. Tilly Bridges, end transmission. Tilly's Trans Tuesdays is hosted by Tilly Bridges and Susan Bridges, with audio editing and sound mixing by Jillian Morgan. The Google Doc and social media versions of this week's topic and all past topics are available at tilliestrainstuesdays.com. Special thanks to Daisy and Jane for the use of Sorry Not Sorry as our show's theme music. Please stop by and show your support at daisyandjane.bandcamp.com and soundcloud.com/daisyandjane. You can find me at Tilly Bridges on Bluesky, Twitter, and Hive, on Mastodon at tillybridges@mastodon.social, at facebook.com/TillySBridges, and on Insta and Threads at Heck Yeah Tilly Bridges. And you can find Susan on most of those at Susan L. Bridges. You can find Jillian at Audio Jillian on Bluesky. You can join the Tillyverse Discord server by following the link at the very bottom of tilliestrainstuesdays.com. We hold regular watch parties for the Matrix films and other trans movies, where I do a live Q&A, and it's blossomed into a wonderfully supportive, compassionate, kind community of friends. We'd love to have you join us. For more information, visit pendantaudio.com. Thanks for listening.